Alright, we have gotten to the Vancouver Canucks, the penultimate team in our prospect pipeline series. But before we get into the Canucks, we need to define what a prospect is in my work and what these tiers mean. To me, a prospect is a player who is within 5 years of their first year of draft eligibility, and they are also a player who has not played more than a full season on an NHL roster. And the tiers we're going to look at starts at franchise level, which is top tier, elite level, top end of the world hockey players who you just never trade. A core level player is you surround a player like a franchise player with these guys. They're really, really good. You don't want to have to live without them, and you just want them on your team and always want more of them. A depth category player is a second, third, fourth line, up and down the lineup role player who can do stuff. Maybe not an elite level player, but should do quite well. And then you have your maybes, which are guys with a lot of potential, but maybe not a whole lot of likelihood of getting there. Or they are just lower ceiling players that just might not have quite enough to be a bottom six, bottom pair NHL player. So we're going to start in the core category, and I've upgraded Jonathan Likaramaki into this group. He had a phenomenal year last year. I can't really fault him at all. He became the Jonathan Likaramaki I remember from his youth, but in the SHL. I'm still a little skeptical of just how impactful he'll be in the NHL, but he should be a very effective goal scorer. It was hilarious watching him score a goal per game at the World Juniors last year, and I've become a much bigger fan of Lekaramaki's game over the course of this past season, and we'll see how it translates to North America, whether it's with the Canucks or in the AHL. I'm excited to see Lekaramaki, and he does kind of ride the line for me between a core and a depth player, but if he ends up a 30-35 goal scorer in the NHL, that to me is a core player that you really don't want to lose, and I feel like he might be able to get there. Next up, we have our depth category, and there's only one guy in here, and that's Tom Willander. And I'm a big fan of Tom Willander, don't get me wrong. I think he could be a good middle pair, 200-foot guy with some really good skill and really high upside. There is a world where he works his way up the pyramid a little bit. There is the possibility that he works his way up the pyramid a little bit from here, but to me, the bar is really, really high between a core and a depth player, and I feel like Willander will just be a very effective NHL defenseman. There's nothing wrong with that, and I really, really like him, so we'll see how things go for him from here. Down in the maybes category, there are quite a few players who are quite interesting here. There's a couple of Swedes, and Elias Pettersson, Melvin Fernström, and Lucas Forsell. I'm a little skeptical of Lucas Forsell long term, but he is very, very young. He's got a wicked shot on him and a bit of skill as well, so I'm being a little bit more optimistic about him than I have been in years past. Atu Ratu is in here, and he's a player I've always loved, and I'm really hopeful that he has a really strong season this year and works his way back into the NHL because I just feel like there's still something there. Maybe I'm grasping at straws, but whenever I saw him down in the AHL this past season, I thought he looked pretty darn good. We'll see what happens with him in the NHL if he ever gets there, but he's an interesting one for me at this point. I've upgraded Sawyer Mainio into this tier, a player who has really taken a big step over the last year. Again, I feel like he's kind of more of a all-around effective defenseman with some size and mobility, and I wonder how much offense there will be in his game, but I feel like he deserved a look in this tier rather than the tier I had him before. And in net, you've got two goaltenders. You've got star of the show, Artur Silovs here, and we'll see about a long-term trajectory with him. I know some people might say, well, he played so well in the playoffs that therefore, why aren't you putting him in a higher tier? Goaltenders are weird, alright? I mean, Silovs is good. He's had a good season. In the AHL, he was good. But I wouldn't say he was spectacular, and I don't really have the level of confidence to say that long-term he's the solution in net for Vancouver. I have all the appetite in the world to upgrade him after a good season this coming year, but yeah, I'm still a little bit hesitant because the sample size just isn't really big enough for me. As well here you've got Ty Young, who all things considered had a pretty decent year with the Prince George Cougars, and his history looks pretty good as well. He had a bit of a tougher workload than his numbers might indicate, and we'll see how things go for him over the next few years. Then you have everyone else, and I haven't really enjoyed a ton of Vancouver's picks, to be honest, over the last few years. I feel like guys like Danila Klimovich are on the older side of things and just haven't quite developed like they should. There are players here that they drafted this past year, like Anthony Romani, who I just don't know if he has the skill and pace to be an offensive NHL player. I do like Basil Sansonens, the player they drafted late in the draft this year out of Switzerland. Very young, very lanky, very raw, tall defenseman. And honestly, I just don't know what he is, but I feel like he's a player who after a season, I'll be watching him a little bit more in Switzerland, and if things go well for him, he absolutely could earn himself a promotion. I have lots of appetite for that. It's just he's extremely raw and I don't know what he is. So the Vancouver Canucks find themselves towards the bottom end of this group of prospects, and that's okay. I still think the ones at the top of the pyramid are very interesting players that could round out the Canucks quite well, especially Jonathan Lekkerimäki. I think he weighs things a lot more positively than this might indicate, and I've been a really big fan of how his game has evolved, and I'm very excited to see him this season. So it's better than it looks, I think, for Vancouver fans, and we'll see how it goes over the next little while. So with that out of the way, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and if you really liked it, be sure to go to Scouching.ca, where a subscription will get you access to exclusive written content and plenty of other cool stuff, like data tables for prospects, both drafted and undrafted, and plenty of other stuff you can check out at Scouching.ca. So we've reached the end of this series in our next video, where we're going to take a look at the young Vegas Golden Knights.